One of the biggest issues with a new adopter is you need to spend time at home with the dog, getting them acclimated. COVID gave us this amazing opportunity where there were people more than ever looking to adopt dogs, looking to foster dogs, looking to get them in. And truthfully, we just didn't really anticipate that. I mean, when you think about it now in hindsight, it makes perfect sense. You got people home, working from home, and that's the perfect environment to bring a pet in. We had a difficult dilemma. We had more demand than ever for animals for adoption and foster, but yet transporting from different states, it was difficult to get dogs in. So we had the demand, but we were really lacking on the inventory.
I got sick. That's a good girl.
We're actually part of, I like to say, the Underground Railroad for dogs. The dogs start off and rescued from kill shelters, mostly in down south Kentucky and West Virginia. And there are several legs of the transport by the time we get them. And usually when I drive, it's usually to parts of New Jersey, or the last one is right before the Pennsylvania border. As a real job, I'm a salesman, but I love doing this more than my regular job. I mean, it doesn't pay me, but our payment is when we send that dog home and their life is going to begin. A lot of times families come in and we want to match up the right dog into the right family, the right people. But there's so many mixed breeds that I have an expression I use. Someone said, well, what kind of dog is that? And I said, that's an American rescue dog.
As a board, we got together and we said, how can we not shut down, keep this thing going? We started to really branch out. We looked to every shelter. We were shut down for a couple of weeks where we just couldn't find dogs to intake. But soon as rescue shelters were starting to transport again, we were right on it. We were out there that first weekend bringing dogs in, and we got up and running.
So around a year ago, we found out about DAWs and their partnership with some of the southern states with their ways and abilities to help us get adoptable animals up north. We typically don't adopt out locally just because we have such an influx and volume of animals. We have more of the supply than of the demand if you look at an economic sense, as opposed to other areas where there's people wanting to adopt and great homes that are fit for adoption. We unfortunately in these areas just don't have that as much. We do behavioral tests, we do all the dog testing, we do all those kind of things ourselves. We get all the information medically that we would need, and then we place the dogs and or cats into foster homes until we find rescue through our rescue partners. And that could be anything from overnight to almost a year.
Last stop, so they've already been through like 6 transfers.
6? That's what we were wondering.
Yeah. Everybody has to get to Hagerstown, and then there's 5 legs.
We have about 6 different county shelters among the 3 states that we work with. Here today, we're at Cabell Wayne in Huntington, West Virginia, where one of our own is actually the director and has been the director for 2 years now.
Before I became the executive director, it was difficult to work with, especially the director. Lots of times you were told one thing and then something else would happen, and sometimes animals were available. It wasn't clean. You know, sometimes the euthanasia rate was high, we'll say that. And the cats were especially at risk, even more so than the dogs. Most of the cats that came in were euthanized, and it was just very haphazard. A kitten came in and they already had another kitten, so they just put those kittens together, and then if one had pan-Luc, then we'd have an outbreak of pan-Luc, and then if things weren't going well, they'd just euthanize all the cats and kind of start over, and so it was kind of a disaster.
There used to be a cat room, which I will show you later, which was Emily's office, and that's the only cats that you ever saw. So when I would come in and do photography on those, there would be something equivalent to those sizes. And there was usually, I think, like 9 cages in there. So in our mind, we only thought there were 9 cats here. They were not disclosing what was going on in the back and how many cats we had. The night that Courtney took over, I can say there was probably a good 80 cats in here without feeding water.
We got up to 130.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before we started really getting the numbers back down. Cages stacked in here all the way around.
Yeah. I can say that the euthanization rates on some of the Kentucky shelters for cats that we have worked with in the past it's a good 90% on cats. And they will often euthanize just so they don't have to clean cages and things like that. So there are some different state laws when you look at the tri-state area. Kentucky state laws, most of their shelters, if there is a bite report, they will euthanize. It does not matter if it was accident or anything. And we've had a lot of instances with them in some of the Kentucky shelters where we have begged for them to give us the animal and they would not.
So have there been any instances or cases where we've seriously thought about euthanization? And the answer is absolutely. So about I would say a year and a half ago, almost close to 2 years now, we had a group of dogs that were with us for a very long time. Some over 2 years, some kind of hitting that year mark. And we really started to talk about what are we going to do? How do we move forward? How do we find these dogs a home? But there was a divide within the board, and euthanasia was on the table for some of them that had behavioral issues that were here a long time. I mean, I view it as when the animal comes through our doors, they're our responsibility. We make a commitment to them. We're going to find them a home as long as it takes. Now, the other side is if that animal is here long term for whatever reason, you can take the view that he's taking up space for another adoptable animal that's in a high kill shelter that could find a home in a day, but it's going to be put down because we don't have space to take him in. So we ran into that issue with this core dogs, but we also thought it was very important to kind of move on, at least find a resolution, open up those kennels, and kind of move on from them and bring in new dogs. So there were, I think, 5 in total: Amos, Poppy, Dexter, Jojo, and Judge. The singular cost to put them in sanctuaries was around $40,000.
With the sanctuaries, it's hard because there are so few that are actually gonna be good. I mean, it can be hard. I mean, what dog wants to live out their life in a kennel?
When you have a good sanctuary, they will focus on the emotional well-being of the dog first. They will have enrichment. They will have walks. Even if they're dangerous, they will still get walked. But the worst ones end up taking on dog after dog after dog, almost like they're essentially being hoarders. We found places where dogs has been starved to death, sitting in tiny little cages, not getting anything they needed emotionally or physically, or food-wise even. And then you have dogs that will never be adoptable. We recently learned about one that I really like a lot, that place wasn't the last stop for dogs, which we thought it was. They actually sent dogs further to another trainer who uses methods that they previously have gone out against, shock collars. And if they don't respond to that training, apparently she euthanizes them. A lot of people don't understand how much it really takes to keep a dog happy. Most people at home, they use a yard and the dog sleeps on the couch and they're like, oh, it doesn't take that much. What they don't realize is that the fact that they are there as human with contact gives the dog a lot. So when the dogs are in sanctuary, some of them are happy not having human contact, and those are the easy ones. But there's a lot of them that when they bond with a person in the sanctuary, they want that person's attention all the time. And when they don't get it, they stress. Because being in a sanctuary is not always easy for all dogs. And the people that care when they see that their favorite dog starts stressing, it's the reason people rescue is because they have empathy. And that empathy bleeds over in a lot of areas.
When we talk about mental burnout, it's something that you even see in the veterinary community. There's a large I guess you could say, percentage of suicides in the veterinary community, and I think a lot of it is burnout. That being said, you know, letting them go is not easy, but you also do know that you've done the best thing you can for them, and it may have been the only time in their life, and I hate to say this and I'll tear up, that they were actually loved. Those last, you know, cheeseburger meals, or my girl right now just got an Outback steak the other day. We think she's got a couple weeks, maybe a month or so to live, and she's just been eating great meals and just living out her life and having a good time until that time we have to make that choice to help her pass.